My name's Dominic Rubino. Welcome to the Cabinet Maker Profit System podcast. Hey, listen, today we're going to be talking about insurance and how you could be making more money from the insurance claims that are happening all around you in your city. So we're going to be talking to Galen Hair, who's an expert in that. Now, I've promised not to make dad jokes, but I've got an insurance topic and a lawyer, and it is just full of dad jokes. I got to give you this one. Why was the insurance company refusing to pay after lightning struck the church? Now, they said it was an act of God and therefore willful destruction by the owner. Oh, God, you got to think of that. I know you guys are going to reuse that one, and I'm happy if you do, because you'll be able to get a lot of laughs out on that one. Listen, folks, this episode is really, really powerful when it comes to making the right money off insurance claims. And one of the professional development tools that I think you're going to want after hearing this is how to make sure you're going after the right deals. And so we've got a tool called the Estimator SOP, a simple system to logically filter out bad jobs. That's the full title of the SOP. If you want to get that from us, just shoot me a text message and just say Estimator SOP, and then we'll send that back to you. That'll help you and your estimator, or maybe even you if you're still doing your own estimates. That'll help you and your estimator identify what are the right jobs to go after, because maybe the insurance jobs you're looking at are really not the right jobs to go after. But knowing is half the battle. I should tell you the cell phone number, I guess. Wouldn't that help? If you want it, just send a text message, say Estimator SOP. The number is 315-903-7853, and say hi while you're doing it. All right, let's get to the episode. We'll see you on the other side. Mr. Galen Hair, how are you?
I'm great. How you doing, Dominic?
Good. I'm so glad to have you back here on, well, not back here because I was on your show.
Yeah.
So it feels like a revisit, right?
It does. It is a revisit, even if it's not the same show. It's nice to reconnect.
Yeah, really nice. And you're in Louisiana, so for everybody listening, it's the place where you go to catch fish, not go fishing. That's how I see Louisiana.
Yeah, there's some of the best hunting and some of the best fishing in the world. It's a great place to live, but we're sitting here talking in July, and it is not an ideal place to be in Southeast Louisiana.
What do you, 110, 115 today?
It feels like 114, they said, but technically it's only 92. That gives you an idea how humid it is.
If it feels like 114, it's 114.
Yeah, I never understood that.
Why do they say that? Yeah, don't do that to me. Just tell me what it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Galen, the reason that I invited you to be on the show for all of our guests is because we're going to talk about how to handle and document insurance claims in millwork, which you're an expert in. But before we get into that topic, so that people get to know you a little bit better, can I ask you kind of an abrupt question?
Sure.
Okay. Well, you're a lawyer, so you're okay with abrupt questions.
Exactly.
Right? I should ask it I'm going to ask this in an accusatory tone.
Fair. I'm ready.
Like on TV.
No, bring it. Let's do it.
Can I do it?
You can.
Mr. Galen Hair, if that's really your name, how is it that you come to be speaking to all these forward-facing cabinet makers and millworkers all around the world?
I think you could have done better.
But sorry, man, I'm not a lawyer.
You're just not accusatory enough. So yeah, as you mentioned, I'm a lawyer, obviously. So what we do, I was lucky. I've been lucky enough to be in insurance claims since before I was a lawyer. I started in insurance claims when I was a kid. Not quite a kid, I guess 22. I came down after Hurricane Katrina, came down to New Orleans, gutted houses, even helped out with some roofing. I had no idea that this was all to further like an insurance goal, right?
Right, yeah.
I was just trying to make like a couple $100 cash a day. So that was kind of my goal, but I had no idea that everyone was like working towards that end of getting money back from an insurance company. So It was kind of interesting. It was like trial by fire. Massive devastation. And I ended up taking those things I learned. I ended up going to law school. I worked on the defense side for a while, went up to New York, represented the largest insurance company in the world, and then came back down, kept representing insurance companies, and then at some point had a attack of conscience, opened my own law firm. And now I represent policyholders and contractors around the country that are working on insurance claims, whether those are big commercial claims or small residential claims. We kind of handle it all. So I've been really fortunate to kind of take that like on the ground experience and move that into the courtroom a little bit.
Interesting that you've seen both sides of it. So you're not just staying on one side and not understanding the yin and the yang, the back and forth of the arguments. I say arguments like as if we're in school, like you've got this, the plus and the minus side.
Yeah, I mean, we tend to get indoctrinated, right? Like we don't like to admit this, but as Americans, we get indoctrinated really easily. You can think of right now 5 people in your life that you know that believe something that you think is utterly ridiculous, but they absolutely believe it.
Bonkers.
Yeah,
I was
right?
working out next to that person today.
What did he say or she?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter. I just want to bet on whatever sport they're training for. I'm going to leave it at
Love
that.
it.
I'm not,
Love
this is
it.
not a show where we do politics. That's as much as I've ever said,
Fair enough.
but I'll
Fair
leave it
enough.
there. Yeah.
But no, so you know those people, you've experienced it. So it's no different when you're on one side of the V, as we call it, or the other. So whether I'm representing Joe policyholder or whether I'm representing big insurance company, like an attorney that does both, well, an attorney that's only done one tends to be very indoctrinated. And I think you miss
Right.
the forest through the trees.
Yeah.
So I'm really lucky that I got that experience to do defense first, because I feel like some of the things we're going to talk about today will be very much educated less from what I'm doing today on the ground, but also things I saw and did years ago.
Right. Yeah. I can see that being extremely valuable because you'd be able to see okay, there was a problem and now we have to deal with it. And all of the things go through that versus the other side where like we caused a problem. How are we going to deal with it?
Whoops. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, this audience here, cabinet makers and millworkers, and when there's a flood, like Katrina came through. I was just looking at a residential listing in Florida the other day, and 4 feet up from the floor, all the drywall, all the sheetrock had been cut out of the house. Well, guess what else is 4 feet up from the floor?
Yeah, last I checked.
Yeah, that's all the cabinets, everything.
Yeah.
Right. Pretty much everything. And so I'm sure your experience in dealing with millwork claims and cabinetry claims and even flooring and moldings like crown moldings and doors is there. But so, the problem our guys have, the audience here, is they're maybe not experts on insurance claims because they don't do it every day. So how do you take somebody who doesn't do it all the time and get them to be good enough to be on the right side of profitability and efficiency?
So you are good enough if you're listening because you do this work every day. So all we have to work on is messaging and phrasing. That's it. You don't need to be a better millworker. You don't need to. You're a good enough millworker to explain to the world what you do. So the only thing is, how are you explaining what you do? And are you actively explaining what you do, or are you being reactive? And we'll break that down, right? But most tradespeople, most specialty tradespeople, and if you're in millwork, I consider you to be a specialty trade.
Yeah.
It's something that takes skill. There are trades that take less skill, right? Drywall is still a trade. It still does require some skill, but it's not considered to be a skilled trade. I consider you to be a specialty trade if you're in millwork, period.
Right.
And stop. And that takes skill. It takes training. Depending on where you came from in the country, your process to get to where you are today might have looked very different. It might be something you just kind of figured out and did yourself, or you may have actually apprenticed and worked under people. Regardless of what that path was, what you're doing today is very different than what the computerized systems that the insurance company uses are factoring in. And we can obviously go through that.
I'm starting to see the layers come off this now.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I find when I listen to lawyers carefully for their language, I start to see where all the little branches shoot off from the tree.
It's
So at some
it's
point,
made unnecessarily complicated so we can still have a job,
I can't believe you just admitted that. None of the rest of us ever knew that about lawyers. But correct me if I'm wrong, but what I think I heard you aiming towards was the fact that your background as a millworker or a cabinet maker has validation in the world of insurance when you say you're an expert on X, Y, or Z. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And an additional layer to that that's really important. To be an expert, and we're not talking expert now like a court appointed expert. That's a whole different thing and not really what we need to talk about for you guys to get paid fairly for the work you're doing. When I say expert, I mean it in the term that we all understand it to be, which is you really know what you're doing. So if you really know what you're doing, you can and should be able to tell me what you're doing and why you do it and how there's not one size fits all. I mean, even in the cabinet world, the problems you run into, right? You go in, you take your measurements, you go back to your shop, you build your cabinets, and how many times do you get to an install and everything goes haywire? Because it does.
Yeah.
that one little measurement was off, this one thing didn't quite work, and on the spot you're reworking your cabinets to get them in so they look right and they look good, because you have a client who has paid you so much money for these cabinets.
Yeah.
Probably a fair price, like objectively, but they think they have purchased a luxury car, right?
Yeah.
So they definitely treat you like they just bought a luxury car and you better have it perfect. The insurance company doesn't take that time and that skill into account. So where it really comes in is like, let's back up. Like, an insurance company uses this system called Xactimate. There's a couple of other systems, and they all work the same, but Xactimate's the biggest one. It's spelled with an X, Xactimate, Xactimate. When cabinets are damaged in a home or a commercial property, the adjuster goes out and they look at the cabinets and they think, okay, are these bad cabinets, medium cabinets, good cabinets, really good cabinets? First of all, they have been trained to never see a good cabinet. It's always medium to poor, right?
Right. Barely IKEA quality. Barely IKEA.
Even less, right?
Yeah.
And what happens is this computerized system that gets a lot of money from insurance professionals reaches out to the Home Depots, the Lowe's, and the big contractors of the world and says, here is our price list. Let us know if anything is wrong. And if the contractor and the Lowe's and the Home Depot of the world are willing to spend their time, say, correcting this list, then great, the list gets corrected. If not, the list continues and perpetuates. So let's say you're doing a claim in Dallas, Texas. The insurance company types in zip code Dallas, Texas, this loss is from whatever date, and whatever that price list is for those cabinets is the amount of money the insurance company will give their customer, and that customer will then give you for the cabinets.
So they just benchmark you against Lowe's or Home Depot, not against the custom millwork package you had done.
Correct. Even if they choose high grade or luxury, right? Even if they choose those, they're still benchmarked with like some extra money in there for better quality materials. What they're not doing is taking into account the hours that you typically will put in to your work and to your install and to your consultations with the customer and to your talks with your suppliers, especially if they're trying to use a different color and you really had to work on that stain or that paint to get it exactly right. Right. All of those things they're not taking into account. So what you have to do is create your own invoice that really breaks that down, not just a flat, like, here are all the things I had to do, but you have to be prepared and able to explain that with your own words, because you know this stuff better than I ever will. So you don't want to rely on me trying to figure out what you do.
Of course. And I'm giving that back to the insurance adjuster saying, look, I appreciate that you said, I'm going to use rough numbers, this package is $50,000 to replace, but actually to match what was in the home before, it needs to be $75,000.
Exactly.
And my logic is X, Y, and Z.
Exactly. So you have to be ready. So if your customer comes to you and says, hey, bad news, using your same numbers, insurance says it's only a $50,000 cabinet job, I'm going to need you to do that for $50,000. What you will say is, no, I can't. That's not a reasonable price. But, do this. Set up a meeting between your adjuster and me so I can show him the cabinets you had, they're damaged, they're there or whatever. I'll even bring a couple of pictures and samples of the work that we do and what it takes, and be ready. Be ready to explain. Let me walk you through the process. These are not mass manufactured and packaged up in
doors, right? Yeah. We're not doing thermofoil. These are custom. Yeah.
Get some data. If you're a solo millworker or you're solo cabinetry guy, figure out how many cabinets you make in a year, because it's not that many. That pricing you're giving me is from some big mass producer that doesn't put any attention to detail, but they produce hundreds of thousands of cabinets a year. I do 400 sets of cabinets a year if I'm lucky. I probably do less than 200.
400 boxes. They do 400 boxes a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is the insurance adjuster open to that conversation? Or are they going to say, look, buddy, we're just going to give you this price. This is all we do. Forget it.
Yeah.
Or
so
will they take into account the fit and finish of the rest of the home that wasn't damaged and say, no, what do they do there?
Yeah, who knows? Adjusters are humans, so they're supposed to take all this into account. Sometimes they just need help, and then they do. Other times they act like it's their money and you're trying to take it from them personally, and they get very dug in, at which point that's probably where some attorney or claims professional probably has to help. maybe not if it's close enough that it's not a big difference and it just like annoys you, you're probably not going to go that route.
Right.
But if they're doing it to you, they're probably doing it to the window guy. They're probably doing it to the roofer. They're probably doing it to the plumber. They're probably doing it to the electrician, right? Like, they're probably doing it to everyone. Yours is a little more specialized, but especially any other specialty trades there. Like if they have a specialty roof, like a clay roof, I guarantee you they're doing the same thing to the clay guy, right?
Okay.
So you guys can all get together and be like, okay, we need to talk to our customer and convince our customer to help out. But assuming you don't need to get help, it's really a series of conversations. It's talking to supervisors when they're being unreasonable. I think the point you made about the finishes of the house are really helpful. Let's say the cabinets were destroyed for some reason. Let's say it was a kitchen fire.
Sure.
And the cabinets are gone, right? You can look through the rest of the house and what cabinets you built anyway and say, look, here's why they had these cabinets in here. It's because they did this trim and they did this and they did this. And like all day, anyone like me is going to put these in. These are not commercial grade, or construction grade cabinets. Like we're going all out. Same thing with flooring, right? Flooring is not one size fits all.
No.
And they love to, if they see if they see like a handful of damaged boards, they love to just like say, we'll replace those boards. That is a nightmare depending on how you have finished those floors.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not going to match.
Not going to match.
It doesn't run through the home.
Yep.
The transition strips aren't going to match. Yeah. We've all seen it.
So what we always say is if it's a continuous flooring system, the whole thing should be replaced at the point that you're replacing a couple of boards. And of course, I mean, continuous is no transitions.
Right.
So I know everyone listening probably does know that, but in insurance, that's a bit of a unique term. But if it's continuous flooring, we advocate to replace it all.
You to imagine something for a second. Think about your shop. Think about your shop layout. Think about the people in your shop. And now I want you to think about your shop leader. You might call that person a foreman or a supervisor. Imagine if you had 10 questions, and by the time you finished asking and answering those 10 questions, you and your foreman both completely agreed on what the priorities were for that foreman to grow in their position so that we had better, smoother, safer production on the floor. Well, those 10 questions exist, and guess who's got them? Old Dommy here. I've got them ready for you. So if you want this professional development tool, send me a text message and just say Foreman Tool. That way, I'll send it to you by email. You can print it off and you can share it with your foreman, and the 10 questions are right there. They are laid out for you. Nothing could be easier. If you want the tool, just say Foreman Tool, and my cell phone number is 315-903-7853. You just mentioned something interesting there, terms that we use. What kind of different documentation do I need to be giving the adjuster or somebody else as the contractor to make this claim come to life in a way that makes sense financially for me as the contractor?
Yeah. So photos all the time. Photos of what you're looking at, like what existed, the damaged stuff, and photos of samples of what you're going to need to put in there. And then photos of the completed product, because sometimes in insurance, they release the money in pieces. Also, the mortgage company might hold the money and release it in pieces. Oh. So you really want to be able to show that you did your job and you completed it well. Your invoices, if you're doing insurance, should be a little more detailed. I don't personally believe you have to line item your invoices. I don't believe you have to say this much labor for this much labor for that, this much labor for this much for wood. Like, I don't think you have to do that. But I don't think your invoice, if you're doing insurance work, should say cabinets, $75,000. It should say this many cabinets, includes labor, includes material, includes measuring, includes fitting, includes construction, includes staining, right?
Right. And so just that little addition of how you phrased it.
Yeah.
I don't have to do a cost breakout, which all the price shopping type clients do. You're saying just give it a chunk, say cabinets, $75,000, and then under it break out and say includes all of these.
Yeah. Yeah, just get that way the insurance adjuster knows that there's more steps there than a computer system where he types cabinets.
Right.
Right? Because they miss a lot of that time you guys are spending or you're having your guys spend. Insurance doesn't take into account, but they're very necessary parts of the job, right? So for instance, the reason why does a GC get overhead and profit? Well, because they have to deal with the customer is the short answer, right? And that doesn't mean the customer's bad. Even a dream customer still requires time to deal with. Let's say you're painting the outside of a house. Well, You got to ask them what color they want. You got to bring them some paint samples. You got to put them on the side of the house. Then you got to call them up and say, hey, did you look? Which one do you like? They're sometimes the customer, even a great customer, is like, I don't know. Can you come by at sunset and take a look? Because I'm really curious how it's going to look when I come home. And you're like, oh, I love that one, right? It all takes time. And in millwork, you're very much dealing with that as well, right? Whether it's flooring, whether it's cabinets, like you're showing the customer, hey, this is what it's going to be. Let's look at it. Let's talk about it. Okay, well, ooh, I don't like the way that island looks now. It feels like it's a little too, it's too out there. Well, we can move it over a little bit. That's why we didn't set it yet, right? Like whatever it is, that's additional time that a computer system that just says cabinets based on size does not catch.
Right. It's interesting. I never considered that they benchmarked it off a Lowe's and a Home Depot and maybe some other Fieldstone, some major suppliers nationally that gave them a benchmark number. Because
exactly.
Nobody listening to this builds to that quality.
No. And that's my point. That's why I knew this audience, these numbers never match up. I have never had a client that had a millworker on board early where I've never had a millworker be happy with the initial price from the insurance company ever. It's never happened.
Right. And so we have to
go ahead. Oh, what I was going to say is I've had the flip happen where the client has accepted money from the insurance company, the case is over, and then they hire someone.
and they're like, I have to bump it up.
Yeah, they're like, why I can't get the cabinets that I had before. I have to go back to like something mass produced or lower quality. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I said we should probably get some folks involved to verify these prices for you up front.
So that's what I was going to ask is when do we need to get you involved, or when? No, let's think about the homeowner, the person who benefits from this and who we serve. What does the homeowner need to do to make sure they get the same fit and finish? And how can our millworkers help them understand that?
Yeah, that's a great question. In a perfect world, someone like me never even comes into the picture. I should be the extreme, right? So what I think more importantly happens is you work with your customer. You say, hey, I want to do these cabinets for you, but they're not going to be cheap because they're not going to be cheap quality. So when you get that worksheet back from your adjuster with the numbers, I want to sit down and talk to you. Now, if they have a GC on board, you can run all this through the GC and it's way more efficient, right?
And
that GC can hold a
partner.
Exactly. That GC can hold a trades meeting with you and all the other trades and be like, okay, gents, here's what we got for this. Here's what we got for this. Where are we at? Right. And the plumber might be like, I'm good. The electrician might be like, I'm short, 10K. You might be like, this is ridiculous. Right. But then also if someone's like, actually, I'm heavy, the GC might be like, oh, great. We'll give you 10, take 10 from you. We're good to go. But so if you have a GC, run it through the GC.
Right.
But if you don't have a GC, that's where it gets hard. Is you have to have an open dialogue with your customer to say, I would like to sit down with you when you get these numbers because I don't want you to get cheap cabinets that you don't deserve. I'd like to go through this with you, look at the numbers, and maybe even have a conversation with your adjuster. Now, again, even without a GC, if there's a couple of other trades that and let's face it, on a lot of these jobs, the people on the other trades, you all can have that conversation together with the homeowner.
Okay.
And that's something you can have. Now, you don't want to be in the position, it's called unauthorized practice of law and unauthorized practice of public adjusting. You don't want to be in the position where you're advocating the insurance company. Well, your insurance policy says this, your insurance policy says this. All I want you to do is very simple. I can't do the job for this price, and here is why. Let me tell you about the work that goes into what I do. I don't want you to be saying, you need to pay this. You're the insurance company. You better pay under the policy. I don't want you to fall into any of those traps. I want you to do what you already know how to do. I can or cannot do it for the price. Here is why. Here is what goes into the work I do. Very simple, very legal, very ethical. No problems with it. Just stay narrow. Some people suddenly want to play attorney and they're like, I read the insurance policy and you have to pay for this, this, and this. Don't do that.
That causes problems back to the contractor.
It could. Some insurance adjusters will use that to try to harm a contractor. Just don't do it. It's very easy to avoid because you just talk about what
stay in your lane.
Yeah,
stay in your lane.
Yeah, that's it. Like you said, remember who you're serving. You're serving the homeowner.
We're serving the homeowner. One of the things I guess you can say is, look, I'm not an expert at contract law, not an expert at insurance, but I am an expert on cabinetry and millwork, especially the stuff you've got here. and let me tell you
Yeah.
what I know. So carve that off, folks. Please pay attention to that, because we're hearing the words of a lawyer, and you're not.
And feel free to talk over their head, like not intentionally, right? I'm not saying intentionally talk down to them, but feel free
to the adjuster or to the
yeah,
owner?
to the adjuster. Like feel free if you're talking to the adjuster. Hey, this is this type of wood and this is how it works and this is what happens with it. Like don't worry, like if they don't understand, like at the end say, did you understand that? Or is there anything I could help you clarify? But feel free to talk over them. Establish yourself as the expert.
Right. Baffle them with
Truth. With truth.
Right. But even if you talk about the method of painting and how many
Yeah.
times you have to sand in between coats and getting the recipe just right, and
Yeah.
the negative air you have in your paint booth, and how you're drying them with infrared, all of those things add value to your message.
Exactly.
And you're still in your lane. I'm a
And it's a
professional.
process that I guarantee you the adjuster does not know. And by the way, I've heard this from so many adjusters. It doesn't matter what trade you're talking about. Suddenly the adjuster used to do that work. It's usually not true.
Yeah.
And you'll figure it out very quickly based on how they're responding to you and what they're saying.
Right.
Now, if you want to go like next level, upper echelon, like ninja level, trying to help get an insurance company to pay appropriately for your work, take some videos. Take some videos of the process that you're talking about.
Oh, of your shop operations.
Yeah. If you're talking about infrared drying, get me a video of you doing it. If you're talking about negative air pressure, get a video of you explaining it. This serves a dual purpose. You can use this for marketing, right?
Sure.
Because you can put it on your social media pages and et cetera, and it helps establish that you really know what you're doing. Plus, it's kind of fun. But secondly, when you're talking to the adjuster, you can be like, oh, and let me send you a video on this, and let me send you a video on that, and let me send you a video on that. They're not even going to want to watch them, right?
They know you're dorking out, and you obviously are really into this woodworking thing. Yeah.
We did this with the tree company. And
I
don't represent
an arborist.
Yeah, we did this with an arborist. They have these cranes, these huge cranes that remove these trees.
Yeah.
And like the insurance company would come by and be like, yeah, $300 for that one, $400 for that one. Well, the springs on these cranes would cost $100,000 each. So we took all these videos of the equipment, like how it works, talking about how much things cost. Like he's just a buddy of mine. So we just did this for fun, right?
Yeah.
And he started getting his ticket prices, which were like closer to 10 grand per removal, because we talked about safety, lots of things about safety. Here's how some tree companies do this. They have climbers. Here's the death rate. Here's how high the workers' comp insurance is. These people get really seriously hurt. We've had 0 injuries on the job because we use this machine, and no one's ever at danger to take this tree out. And we think that's a liability for the homeowner. So the homeowner deserves not to have someone get hurt on their property. Like we did all this stuff for fun, just to like see if it would work. We did this like 5 years ago. I recommend this on any podcast I go to, and every contractor. No one has done it since.
But they could, and it's not hard to do.
And it's free. Your buddy with a cell phone can help you do it. It doesn't have to be
your 16-year-old son, daughter, niece, nephew can take that video for you.
Oh, and then they'll edit it for you. They'll do all sorts of stuff you didn't know could be done.
My son edits videos on his phone. I'm like, go to your computer. I can't even see my phone. The size of the font on my phone is ridiculous.
So we're similar ages, and we used to have to buy if you wanted to edit a video, you had to buy a fancy computer. You had to sit there. It had to render. If you remember rendering for hours for like a 3-minute video. And now these kids on their cell phones are like, look, I just edited it. I added music. I've got an intro. I faded out.
Yeah, it's posted and I have 1,000 likes. I'm like, what? How did you do that? So it's interesting that all of this really comes down to communication, is being a good communicator back to clients. And one of the challenges we have, because we're guys, a lot of us here, we're not good communicators. And we might not even be fancy, right? We want to just do things very efficiently and very lean and the least amount of words as possible. I don't want to get fancy with my language, but what I'm hearing from you is it's time to slow down a little bit and add some bulk to the communication, and add some communication to the communication, and add some reasoning to the communication, which ultimately you're going to be able to reuse again and again. Anyway, is that what I'm?
Yeah. And one thing, so with the tree guys, like a great example, because these dudes are like, they're all former like military infantry, right? They just don't talk and they're not in touch with their feelings, right? So what I said is, imagine if your kid came up to you for the first time, your kid has not shown any interest in your job, and said, hey, Dad, can you teach me what you do and how you do it? And just explain it. Well, here's what we do. Here's what we do next. Here's what we do now, son. And then just take out son and add sir. You know, that's it.
I love it. You
It's
don't say
still very polite. You're not
fall
going to be
in,
rude to
son.
your kid, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So you just say sir instead of kid and walk through the process, like really walk through the process. Because now you want your kid to work with you and you want
Mm,
your kid to learn how to do this stuff.
of
So
course.
really walk through it.
What's the let's change gears just a tiny little
Yeah.
bit. What's the thing that's changing in the insurance industry that as contractors we need to be aware of?
It's tightening up. 6 years ago, 7 years ago, people could resolve a claim whether they were lawyers, public adjusters, or contractors. They would go out to lunch with the insurance adjuster. They would bring some pens and paper. They would talk and they would work something out. And by the time the adjuster got home, there was an agreement and the contractor could get to work a week later. Insurance has become, well, insurance companies have tried to form their claims centers into profit centers, meaning they try to spend less money than they have allocated to pay claims every year.
Of course.
That's a problem. They used to just kind of spend it, honestly. But reinsurance has gotten more expensive. Insurance companies have their own insurance to cover their payments on claims, right? Which
We
is
might need to
wild.
take 2 seconds to talk about reinsurance, but let's finish this
Yeah.
part first because you're going to
Um,
blow people's minds with the whole reinsurance
so
conversation.
so they're trying to beat their reinsurance numbers because the premiums have gone up and they're just saving money. So what we've seen over the last year as a trend is large losses, forget about it. Like they're almost impossible to resolve these days.
How do you
Big
mean?
commercial
Sorry, what do you
claims.
mean large losses?
Yeah, so big commercial claims, homes that are kind of burnt to the ground. Like we're watching these wildfires out in California, right? I
Right.
mean, those we consider all those large losses. Those houses are gone, and they're like 2, 3, $4 million houses.
So what's the insurance company going to do in that case? Just walk
I
away?
mean, we've got a number of those clients, and they're probably going to end up having to file suit because all day it's very simple. Like the house is gone. They have a $3 million policy. It's probably a $7 million like house. Just pay it, and they're still nickel and diming them like down. Like one of them's at like $600,000, and they're easily owed another 2.5 million.
Wow.
It's wild. So what I'm seeing is brutal out in California right now, and that's been the trend. So I think with that said, like it's not like there's no hope. Like I see claims closed all the time. I see claims closed without our involvement all the time.
Mhm.
I'm in this industry, so contractors call me all the time to let me know when they have a success because we're friends, and they
Sure.
do still have successes. But I think across the industry, everyone kind of acknowledges that it's gotten tighter. This stuff is cyclical, so for a couple of years it'll be really hard, and then there will be a new sheriff in town at the insurance company who'll be like, why are we spending so much money on legal fees? Why is everyone suing us? Start paying claims. And then 3 years after that, someone will be like, why are we spending so much money on claims? Stop paying claims.
You're right, though, that things go in cycles.
Oh, yeah.
Do me a favor, because you brought up something really interesting that most people have never heard about. This word
Oh.
called reinsurance. Now, people are pulling over to the side of the road. They're scratching their head. They're moving. They're like, what? I don't barely get insurance. And now you're talking about reinsurance? Tell us what that is.
Yeah, I don't think it's the most interesting topic, but insurance companies, we tend to feel bad for them. We don't want them to go to business. They're paying too much money in claims. They have purchased insurance to hedge their bets.
Right.
So, when most insurance companies see a huge disaster like a hurricane, a wildfire, they've already in advance of that purchased insurance. So they would only be out of pocket a certain amount of money if there was a mass loss, which is wild because what that means is the insurance company is gambling with house money, right? It's not their
Right.
money. So they are being difficult because they're trying to keep their reinsurance rates low.
Rates
So
down.
they don't
Yeah.
want to pay too much. They're not being difficult to save themselves money. They're going to hit in a major loss event, maybe not in like a one-off, like, oh, this poor person's house caught fire. Their
Mm.
reinsurance might not kick in because they probably have a huge mass deductible of like 1 million, 2 million across a loss. But for any mass event, they're going to pay their deductible. They know they are. So
Mm.
all it is a matter of getting reimbursed by the reinsurance company. But the reason they're not doing that is because they want to keep their rates low.
Because they're going to get dinged the next time that comes up.
Mhm.
Right. So if I understand correctly, we're going to use a very small model and I want you to
Yeah.
correct me. Imagine a cul-de-sac and everybody in there buys their insurance from the same company in that cul-de-sac. So let's say there's
Mhm.
10 homes. That insurance company says, hey, I've got this package of insurance deals. And they go to a specialty insurance market and say, will you reinsure me as the insurance company on the claims that I might get from that home, those 10 homes? Is that
Exactly.
okay?
Exactly. Yeah, they do it in huge portfolios, and that's exactly right. And the reinsurance companies are usually happy to do it because absent some major mass event, they'll never have to pay anything.
I have to ask the next question. Are there reinsurance companies?
Not that I've run into, but I would be shocked if there were not.
Right.
Like,
There has to be somebody
yeah.
out there making money on
Oh
paper
yeah.
in the air. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
yeah. Everyone wants to talk about like the conspiracy theories and like all the different secret societies. Like it's probably a reinsurer that's sitting at the top of the economic world, you know?
Yeah, with a triangle carved in, above them. Yeah. Galen, this has just been incredible so far. I'm thinking already that I might like to have you back for a series to talk about different topics and angles, but let's leave that for side conversation. Thank you. First, if somebody wants to find you in the world, how the heck do we find you and ask more questions privately?
Oh yeah, super easy. So I'm on all the various social media. The firm's name is Insurance Claim HQ, so you can always find us there. You can also find me. My name's pretty similar. There's no, there's not a lot of Galen Hairs in the world. I guess I can thank my mom for that. And then so on all the social media, and then if you need to get in touch with like our team directly, just go to our website, insuranceclaimhq.com.
Yeah. So glad to have you here because this is a topic that doesn't normally get pulled apart and explained. And there's opportunity here for us, but it shouldn't be the opportunity where we say to ourselves, oh, I got this insurance thing. We're going to lose a handful, but I want to keep that client. What I'm hearing
Yeah,
from you is I can still make the money we deserve to make as a company and serve our client.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Galen. Well, thank you very much for joining us. We'll have you back again.
Thank you, Dominic.
Bye-bye. Well. I want to say thank you to Galen for being on here again. Listen, we're going to have him back afterwards. After the episode ended, he and I stayed on the line and we kept talking about some potential topics for the future so that we can make sure that contractors, millworkers, cabinet makers, those of you doing closets can make the most out of this industry, the insurance side of this industry, because there is some hidden profit centers there that we haven't touched on. So I'm going to have him back in the future. I want to remind you that I'm not supposed to do dad jokes on the show because of your feedback. You guys told me no more dad jokes. So I'll never be able to share this one with you ever. You'll never be able to hear this. What do hospital gowns and insurance companies have in common? You're not usually as covered as you think you are. Now, you told me not to do the dad jokes, but you're going to share that one within the next 6 hours. And I want you to get a belly full of laughs doing it. Thanks for checking in, folks. Listen, I know you guys are listening on iTunes. I know you're listening on YouTube, and I appreciate you doing that. Keep doing that. Subscribe so that I know that people are out there and the show continues to grow. We've actually been having exponential growth months where more and more people are listening to the show, which is great because we've been doing the show for like 10 years. But that still doesn't replace the fact that I want to sit down with you one day and have a real cup of coffee or a glass of wine. I did mention earlier the professional development tool called the Estimator SOP. Remember, just send me a text message if you want the Estimator SOP because you want to make sure you're bidding the right jobs, which could include these insurance claim jobs. Maybe they work for you, maybe they don't. But at some point, you need an SOP for your estimator so that you give them a, we often hear an owner like yourself saying, I want to get everything out of my head and on paper. Well, this SOP gets the estimating piece of the business out of your head and on paper. So grab it from me and use it in your own business. Just text me and I'll send it to you. Say Estimator SOP, and then I'll know which one. My cell phone number, which I think everybody already knows, but I'll say it again for those of you who have a pen and paper handy. My cell phone is 315-903-7853. Say Estimator SOP and say something else funny in there, and then we'll get back to you. All right, folks. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being here and look forward to meeting you face-to-face one day. We'll talk to you soon.